Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wisdom and Wellness podcast. I know I've missed a few weeks, but one thing this podcast has taught me is that life happens and it's totally okay. So this is going to be our last podcast for season 1, and then going on a production break rather. And don't worry, if you want to hear more of my voice, I'm on Our Love Journey, which is going to be coming back. This is kind of my last podcast for this season. And also, I think with the lockdown regulations, it's really hard to get guests coming in. So we're trying to also keep within regulations, but also keep the content coming. So today's podcast, I want to talk about the lessons that I've learned through Wisdom and Wellness. Now, Wisdom and Wellness was actually birthed through videos, which I did by myself like this, that I started in the beginning of the year, when I would just sit in front of a camera, take a 5-minute video, and kind of share my heart, kind of share some nuggets of wisdom that I've learned, be it from the Bible, books, some of my favorite people, and even through life lessons. And then the growth was tremendous. I mean, I think in about 2 days, we'd get so many people viewing and sharing the videos that it became a podcast, and I started sitting down with guests, and that was a lot of fun for me. I enjoyed that. Now, before I get into what I learned from my guests, I kind of want to share what I learned just from the podcast. I did share that we did a whole lot of work and we recorded and everything was set in motion, and then our work got stolen. That for me was like the hardest thing ever. I've spoken so many times about how I'm actually a recovering perfectionist. And that for me, as someone who's a recovering perfectionist, was literally felt like a bullet to my head. And in that moment, I realized that there was nothing I could do to fix it, and I had to be okay. And that is a life lesson in itself, that sometimes, just like the pandemic happened, life really happens and it shifts your work ethic. It shifts things that are standard to you. It shifts the way things naturally happen for you. And you kind of have to be okay. Sometimes take time out, and sometimes slap a bandage on and keep it moving. And I think in that time for me, because I also had a few health issues, I had to just take a step back and relax. And now, even the way that I'm treating my work going forth, I do my best in everything that I do, but I also realize that I don't have control over everything, and I have to be okay with that, and that's really okay. So that's one of the lessons that I learned from the podcast. And I think just also by sitting with other people, other guests, a lot was happening. I've learned how to be a producer. I've learned how to do my own research. I've learned I've become a better listener. As someone who talks a lot, it's almost difficult for us to be good listeners. And I think through the conversations that I've had with my guests, I've learned to be a listener. And I read it in a book or in a quote that if you want to be the one who learns the most, you need to listen the most. So I found that through listening more and talking less, I've actually learned a lot. Some of the things I learned from the guests that I've had on, from Hulisani, I learned that rejection is part of the process, and you have to keep on working, and the right things will come to you. From the conversation with Hulisani, I felt like everything had meaning. The rejection, the no's, the difficulties, what worked out and what didn't work out, whether I'm seen or not seen, it doesn't matter. But to keep on putting my heart into everything and to keep on being excellent even behind the scenes. So that's what I took from Hulisani, and I think she really, really embodies that. And excellence really is her brand. And as she mentioned during our conversation, at the right time, at the right moment, the right people will get to hear, the right brands will get to see, and everything that you need to make your dream or your goal happen will come together at the right time. But in the meantime, we need to continue doing our best. What I learned from Xavier is breathing is a form of worship and it brings you closer to God. And this ties back with me losing my work again, that I had to be grateful for everything that was going right. I had to learn to slow down and breathe. I think when we're consumed by things and projects, we forget to even listen to our own breath. And I think that in itself is missing in the moment. The word of God says, be still and know. And that be still means every time I think we need to take some time out. Listen. What are you trying to say? Am I present? Am I in the moment? And I think part of my conversation with Xavier made me realize, even as I was having the conversation, I realized that in that moment, nothing else matters. I was present. I was there. I learned. I was healing. I was listening. And so that's what I've taken from Xavier and my journey with this podcast. Rachel Kolisi, there is power in prayer. Sure. After our conversation, it's as if God was preparing me that there's something called warfare. And we don't always focus on that aspect of prayer where we know that we don't fight or we don't wrestle against flesh, but it's spiritual. The spiritual world is so much realer than the physical world. And talking to Rachel made me realize that when she was talking about how when it was the World Cup, she had to go and pray and speak things and cast out things. And we don't emphasize enough how important it is to always stay prayed up, especially when starting something new, especially when we are doing the things of God. Because at the end of the day, the enemy, bad, does not want good to prevail, but we have to press on more so in the spiritual. Amanda Dambuza, be confident. Sure, before she even opened her mouth, she wears her confidence. And I think if you read her story, you understand how much it took for her to get to a place where she's so bold and confident and okay with who she is and everything that she is. Sure. I mean, from Amanda, when I started speaking to her, I was in a place of so much doubt. And the reality of my career is that the more you grow, the higher you go, the more people you reach, you start attracting even the negative. And you don't really mentally prepare for that the negative is just part of it. And although it's 99% positive, that 1% still affects you. And I was in a space where I was affected by that 1% of negativity. And she said, no, you're good at what you do. Do it. It doesn't matter what other people say. And that's the confidence I learned from Amanda. In whatever I do, I have to show up, be bold, be confident, and know who I am. This morning, I was listening to a podcast by Oprah, and she was talking about the day she finally started appreciating her body. And it was after she had heart palpitations, and she had been through a process of yo-yo dieting, and then she had these heart palpitations for some time. And then eventually she realized that, oh my gosh, I don't thank my body enough, that this body carries me. I've never had to think about the beats of my heart. I've just always worried about, is this in the right place? Cellulite, this. And after that, she stood in the mirror for the first time and she didn't see this chubby woman with all sorts of things that she mentioned, but she saw herself for who she really is, a beautiful woman who has a body that houses her soul, her personality. And it's that confidence thing. That's when she became confident and okay with who she is. And that is so important. And I'm walking that journey of starting to appreciate myself, who I am in my fullness. Ugaise spoke about healing, and a week later I spent about 3 days with her on a work trip where we were together, and we continued to talk about this journey of healing, and she shared more of the story. But in her, through my conversations and encounters with her, I realized the power of resilience, how resilient she is. I had a situation at the airport where I sat down and burst out into tears. And she was right next to me and she said, it's okay, cry. But then we get up, we pick up and we continue because you're strong, you can do it. And that's what I learned from Ugai Seguti. Take your time. If you need to cry, cry. Take some time out, break down. But afterwards, you get up and you keep it moving. And that's exactly who she is, a resilient queen who keeps it moving. And my last guest on this season was Mac, the owner of Basani. And he taught me to see people. His journey, I mean, there's so much that he shared that we didn't share, of his encounters with people, all types of people from different walks of life. And from him, I learned to see people for who they really are. And as we know, we're all just looking for the same things. Are we loved? Are we valued? Are we seen? And that's changed my perspective on how I interact with people. Even when people are hurtful towards me, you realize, no, man, there's a story behind that. My husband once shared a video of a pastor who was talking that if you don't understand why a person is acting the way they do, it means you don't have the whole picture and the whole story. And that shifts your perspective. We don't always get it right, but it helps us in our encounters with people that hurt people hurt people. So let's heal so that we can be healed people and we can treat people with love and respect. And that's it from me on this season of Wisdom and Wellness. I look forward to some time out to take in to read, just to share some books that I will be reading in case you want to. I'm currently reading Don't Drop the Mic by T.D. Jakes, which is absolutely amazing so far. And it speaks to a lot of the season that I'm in, where I'm so hesitant, where, like I said, when you start growing and then you start encountering the negative aspects of your career, you feel like, don't share this, don't do this, people this. And it's so important to stay focused, to share your message in spite of what other people have to say. People will always talk, whether you're doing good, whether you're doing bad, they will talk and you will be hurt, and sometimes you won't be hurt, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, don't drop the mic. Then the next one is what happened to me? What happened to us? What happened to us? Sorry. It's a book by Oprah Winfrey that she just released. I haven't started reading it. That's why I'm getting the name wrong. That's my next read. This is about our childhood traumas and how they affect us in our adulthood. And the last book that I've bought that I'll be reading is Cicely Tyson's memoir or biography. I can't wait to dig into that. I read a line from her where she said, when I go to bed, I sleep because I am tired. I am fatigued. And I sleep peacefully. I don't ever have a knot in my stomach because I made the wrong decision. Simply put, everything she's ever done or every decision she makes sure that her conscience is clear so that she can go to bed feeling okay with herself. And at the end of the day, we only have ourselves and God to prove to, and nobody else. So whatever we do, make sure that we can go to bed feeling pleased and fulfilled. I love you. Thank you for being with me this season. Thank you for putting us on the top of the charts, for sharing the podcast, for sending encouraging words, and just being part of my community. I love you guys. I enjoy your company, and I can't wait to be back with season 2, whatever season 2 looks like.